I welcome you to another episode of Decomposers. Actually, it's our first episode, probably our last. But I thought we would do an experiment a little differently than we would do it in school, in that we are spread out across East Lyme, Niantic, and your teacher over in Essex. And it's going to be interesting if we can pull this off. I think we can. It will be important to use Google Classroom to report our findings, to ask questions, to share comments. And we have as our special guest who is going to lead us through this expedition with a little commentary from yours truly along the way to clarify and to call him out where I think he needs calling out. So I hope you enjoy the video and look forward to carrying this out.
Hi, it's Doug. You've probably noticed how in the fall season or in autumn, there's always some trees that drop their leaves. And as you walk down the sidewalk, they make that nice crunching sound as you step on them. Something I've loved to do every year since I was a little kid is to rake up a big pile of those leaves and then just run and jump in. I do a big leaf jump. But then winter would come, and then spring, and I wouldn't see those leaves on the ground anymore, just grass. I'd totally forget about the leaves that used to be on the ground. But where did they go? Now, I know what you might be thinking. The ones people rake up from their yards, those get put into bags and hauled off to the garbage dump. But forget about the leaves in a yard. I'm talking about the leaves anywhere. I mean, think about the leaves on the forest floor, the ground around the trees. The trees in the forest drop their leaves, and there's no one going around raking the forest floor. So shouldn't the forest floor be piling up so thick with leaves by now? I mean, year after year after year of dropping leaves. It should be like hundreds of feet of leaves. That'd be like the most fun leaf jump ever. Where do all those leaves go? Why doesn't the forest floor look like this? What do you think? See, in this sped up video, they seem kind of alien. Until you watch what they can do after it rains. Now, this is a patch of forest floor where there's lots of these white threads growing in the soil. And now, watch what happens if we show it in a sped up video after it's been raining. Ready? Here we go. Oh, you see that thing? Here's a view of it from the side. Do you recognize these? Watch what happens. They're mushrooms popping up. So those little white threads we saw, they're the roots of mushrooms. Here's a diagram to help you visualize it. Mushroom roots are spread out within the soil all around the forest floor. Only after it's been raining do the mushroom roots send up the mushrooms themselves. But the mushroom roots are there in the soil the whole time, living a secret life. What scientists discovered about mushroom roots is that they poke out from the forest floor and surround dead plant leaves, touching them on all sides. As they do this, the mushroom roots let a liquid flow out, which starts breaking the leaf apart, or decomposing it. Mushrooms are what we call decomposers, meaning they break dead things apart. Some of that leaf, they suck back in and digest. It's what they eat. But some of it they leave behind as a blackish brown material. That's what soil is. Or the less formal word for that is dirt, the stuff that plants grow in. This is hard to see, so let me show you what happens to a bunch of dead leaves in another sped up video. Let's watch.
Whoa, Doug, hang on a second. Did anyone else notice what just went wrong there? What is soil? Is it just mushroom poop? Oh, did I say that? Mushroom remains? I don't know. Let's think about this for a moment. Anyone have any ideas? If you do, share them on the comment section of the assignment page on Google Classroom. Pause the video and see who can come up with the right answer. On your mark, get set, go.
Here you can see the mushroom roots are growing, and at the end of 2 weeks, look, the leaves have turned into soil. So that's why we don't see leaves on the forest floor. Mushroom roots eat and digest part of the leaves, breaking them up and turning what's left into soil. And there's not just one kind of mushroom. There are all different kinds of mushrooms. They come in many different colors. They come in different shapes. They come in different sizes. This one's
Douglas, slow down a minute. What do you guys think of that big mushroom? Any questions go through your mind when you see something like that? Personally, I think, where in the world would a mushroom like that grow? Would it be in New England? Would it be in South America? Would it be Antarctica? Only one way to find out. How do we go about doing that? Anyone have any ideas? Post them. Let's find out. All right, back to the show.
And it's not just leaves that the mushroom roots will break apart and eat. Yes, some types of mushrooms have roots that eat leaves, but other kinds of mushrooms like to eat dead wood, so you'll see them growing on fallen logs like these here. Some mushrooms even decompose the bodies of animals, like these little mushrooms, which are decomposing the body of a dead grasshopper. So mushrooms have these little roots growing everywhere on the forest floor, which go around eating and breaking apart leaves and any dead stuff, like fallen trees. What they leave behind becomes soil. Now, think about that. If there were no mushrooms, imagine what the world would look like. Without mushrooms, all the dead leaves really would pile up like this. The world around us would be piled high in fallen trees and dead leaves and dead animals. You wouldn't even be able to walk around. There'd be no decomposition happening, no breaking apart of those things into smaller pieces. In fact, everything under your feet, almost all the soil that you walk over every day, used to be plants and animals that are now decomposed. So,
whoa, Doug, hang on a second. Did anyone else notice what just went wrong there? What is soil? Is it just mushroom poop? Oh, did I say that? Mushroom remains? I don't know. Let's think about this for a moment. Anyone have any ideas? If you do, share them on the comment section of the assignment page on Google Classroom. Pause the video and see who can come up with the right answer. On your mark, get set, go.
So, say a thank you to the next mushroom you see. Its roots decompose dead plants and leaves, breaking it down into smaller pieces. And just as important, that becomes the soil that all the plants around us can grow in. So far, we've just been talking about mushrooms decomposing dead plants and animals on the forest floor. But there's something in your home that decomposes if you leave it out. Your food. All food comes from plants and animals. If you leave food sitting out, it decomposes too. What's going on? The food isn't sitting on the forest floor where mushroom roots can get to it. So why does it decompose?
I don't know about that first question. Seems kind of obvious to me. But the second one is actually quite interesting and something I hope we will take into consideration as we plan to do our lab, which we're going to be doing this afternoon and tomorrow. That is the planning phase of this project. Thursday, we will hopefully be able to do the building of our mold terrarium. Hopefully you'll have all your supplies. We'll talk about that more in tomorrow's video that will be out in time for you to get something done. I'm committed to, even if it takes me all night, to get that done. It's been a bit of a learning curve for me to learn some of the nuances of this medium, but it's fun, and it takes a lot longer to put together, to cut and paste, to trim, to find the parts and redo the parts that you need to do. It's not the best for our purposes, particularly Mystery Science Doug's audio, but I'll look into how to do that better after this video. So on with the show.
Why is it that if you leave food sitting out for a while, it starts to decompose, like this loaf of bread or this strawberry? All of our food comes from either plants or animals. But since your food's sitting on a counter, and not the forest floor, you'd assume there aren't any mushroom roots that can get into your house and decompose your food. So what is this stuff growing on your food as it rots? You probably know it's called mold, but you might not have known this. Take a closer look at it. Here's a close-up view of some mold growing on a vegetable. You see that? What's it look like? Looks like mushroom roots a bit, doesn't it? Look even closer, under a microscope, and you'll see this. See these little things here? They even resemble mushrooms, just microscopic ones. That's because they are mushrooms. Mold is a type of mushroom that grows really well in your house. It's just a really tiny microscopic mushroom. When talking about both mold and ordinary mushrooms, scientists like to use a different word for the whole category of the two of them together, mold and mushrooms. Together they call them fungi, which comes from the Latin word for mushroom. It seems crazy to think there might be tiny mushrooms that can get into your house, but scientists have discovered that floating all around your house are little seeds of these mold mushrooms. They call them spores, and they find them everywhere. You won't even notice these seeds without a microscope. And there's really nothing you can do about them. They're so small that they float around in the air. You've been surrounded by them your whole life. So when you leave food sitting out for too long, like in this sped up video, eventually those mushroom seeds will land on it and start to grow mushroom roots. And as they do that, they're breaking it apart or decomposing it, just the same as if these berries were on the forest floor. If you wait long enough, you'll come back and have a little tiny pile of soil where the berries once were. This is the same idea behind composting. Instead of throwing grass clippings or food scraps in the garbage, some people like to put it in a big pile in their yard, where then mushroom roots can decompose it and help transform it to soil. See, check out this compost bin that's been cut in half so that you can see what happens inside it. At the top of the bin, you can see food that someone threw away really recently. At the top is the newer things. But the food at the bottom of the bin has been sitting there for a long time. It doesn't even look like food anymore. Mushroom roots have turned it into soil, which someone can then go use in their garden to grow new plants. So someone wanted the food they threw in this bin to rot and turn into soil. But with most foods that we buy, we don't want them to decompose quickly. We want them to stay fresh on the grocery store shelves and stay fresh after we buy them so that we've got time before we have to eat them. Because we don't want our food to decompose quickly, we've come up with ways to fight the decomposers, to keep the mold, the little mushrooms, from starting to grow so quickly. Decomposers are living things too, and they have needs. And if those needs aren't met, they won't be able to live and decompose our food. For example, you know we keep a lot of our food in a refrigerator or in a freezer. So cold temperatures must have something to do with stopping mold from growing. Of course, 100 years ago, people didn't have refrigerators. What did people used to do to keep food from decomposing? What are some other things that affect how well mold grows? Like, for example, say you were going to go camping for 2 weeks without a refrigerator, and you wanted to bring some food along, like some sliced oranges. What might you do to keep the oranges from decomposing? In today's activity, you're going to make a mold terrarium, a sealed-off container where you can purposely let mold grow on food for several days. Your goal is to run an experiment and find out what conditions help mold to grow and what conditions stop mold from growing. You probably know that if you leave food out at room temperature, mold will start growing just fine. So you'll want at least one mold terrarium just like this. We'll call it the basic mold terrarium. But you'll also want to make a few more mold terrariums so that you can experiment to figure out what conditions make mold grow better and what conditions stop mold from growing. To figure that out, you'll want to try some different growing conditions for your mold plates. So you'll work as a small team to make a mold terrarium that's different from the basic terrarium in just one way. Your team will decide what one condition you want to change about your terrarium and then see what happens. For example, you might be curious about what happens if the mold terrarium were to be kept somewhere really warm. So you put it by a heater. This mold terrarium would be just like the basic terrarium, except for one condition that you're changing, the temperature. You'd be keeping every other condition the same. You'd just be making the temperature warmer. And that way you can find out how warmth affects how mold grows. Or you might have heard that in olden days, before there were refrigerators, people used to put a lot of salt on their food. So you might decide to see what happens if you add salt to the food in your mold terrarium. If you have a few teams, you can test out a few different ideas, and so learn what happens under all kinds of different conditions. But even if you only grow a basic mold terrarium, you'll at least get a great look at how mold looks like and how it grows over time. Okay, it's time to get some mold growing. I'll show you how to set it up step by step. Get these handouts. You'll get more supplies later, but first you need to make a plan. When you're done with this step, click the arrow on the right.
Okay, you will get these supplies online from the materials list that is accompanying this activity, and we will walk you through step by step how to fill this out. You can do it online if you don't have a printer.
Form a team with a few friends. Your team will make a mold terrarium together.
Try to accommodate those who wanted a partner and those that wanted a group, but no guarantees. The rest of you will be individual and have to find someone to work with on some of these questions.
Teams, discuss what you want to test. Write down ideas under question number 1 and circle your favorites.
Once you get your team or partners, you'll want to come back to this section and replay this part so that you can fill this in together. It's pretty straightforward.
Discuss all together what condition each team wants to test. Remember, your goal is to learn as much as you can about mold, so make sure each team chooses a different condition to test. If 2 teams want to test the same thing, work together to have one team choose something else. The more conditions that you test, the more you'll learn about mold.
Where it could get interesting, we have a number of teams, none of us can see each other, and we can come up with different concepts.
Now that each group has decided on what to test, fill in question number 2.
Now here's where it could get very interesting, so I want you to give it a lot of thought. Not only what foods to do, but whether you're going to use salt, sugar, or something else.
Choose a team name and write it on your handout under question number 3. This should only take you 20 seconds. Ready? Go!
If you come up with a team name, we'll post it online and we'll keep track by team of what our results are and what we see over the course of the next couple of weeks. And that will include posting photos that we'll put online and so everyone can see what a terrarium looks like.
Get your supplies. Your team may need other items too, depending on what you're testing.
Okay, so this is where it could get a little complicated. Remember, you're to choose just one thing that you're changing, and that is either a piece of food, or you're going to add sugar, or you're going to salt all the food, or you will lick the food, or you might rub all the food across the countertop. Just one change. Remember, I will have the basic items, and for today, you're just going to talk about what those plans will be, and then tomorrow or Thursday rather, we will take the time and put it all together. Should only take you about 10 or 15 minutes if you plan ahead and decide who's going to get what, or if all of you have the necessary ingredients. Now, if someone doesn't, then we can work around that. You can make sure that at least one member of your group has all the necessary ingredients, and you can share your notes with those that don't, and also by photograph perhaps. So this is a big experiment. We'll see how it comes out, and we'll give it a chance to do it. So later on today, I will have that list to you. Should try and do it within an hour or so, but I want to get this to you now so that you can enjoy it. Good luck, and we'll talk again real soon. Thanks so much for your patience. I apologize that it took so long to get this done, but it's Hollywood. What can I say? Help.